why you doubt yourself even when you're right. You say something, and a moment later, you start questioning it. Even when you know you were right, your mind quietly asks, maybe I misunderstood. Maybe they know better. And before anyone even disagrees with you, you begin stepping back. Why does your brain do that? Why does certainty dissolve so quickly? There's a reason this pattern forms, and it usually starts long before you notice it. Problem deep dive. It shows up in small moments. You double-check a message before sending it, then check it again, then still wonder if you sounded wrong. In conversations, you soften your opinions. You add phrases like, I might be wrong, but even when your evidence is solid, at work or school, you notice something others missed. But instead of speaking with clarity, your voice carries hesitation. And afterward, your mind replays the moment, not to understand it, but to audit yourself. This isn't just doubt. It slowly shapes identity. You start seeing yourself as a person who might be mistaken, the one who should wait before speaking, the one who should defer to others. And over time, your brain builds a quiet rule. Confidence is risky. Psychology calls this a pattern of internalized uncertainty. It often develops in environments where being wrong carried social consequences, not necessarily punishment, but subtle signals, dismissed opinions, interrupted thoughts, people who sounded more certain than they actually were. Your brain noticed something important back then. Certainty attracts attention. Attention can lead to rejection. So it learned a protective strategy. Lower the volume of your confidence. But there's something even deeper happening inside the brain, and it involves how your mind predicts social safety. Reframe. First, something important. This pattern doesn't mean you lack intelligence. It doesn't mean your judgment is flawed. In many cases, it means the opposite. Your brain is highly sensitive to feedback. It's trying to prevent social friction. In behavioral psychology, this is known as adaptive caution. Your mind learned that being careful with certainty keeps relationships smoother. So instead of pushing forward, it adds a pause, a hesitation layer. Think of it like a psychological shock absorber. It softens impact before it happens. The problem is, the brain rarely updates the system on its own, even when the environment changes. So a strategy that once protected you can quietly limit you now. But the real question is, what exactly is happening inside the brain during these moments of doubt? Psychological mechanism. Your brain is constantly making predictions, not just about facts, but about reactions. Neuroscience describes this through predictive processing. Your brain asks, if I say this, what will happen next? When you've experienced uncertainty around speaking up, your brain builds a prediction model. Confidence, possible conflict. So when you feel certain about something, another system activates. It's called the error monitoring system, linked to the anterior cingulate cortex. Its job is to detect possible mistakes before they happen. But here's the twist. It doesn't only monitor factual mistakes. It also scans for social mistakes. Meaning, your brain treats being confidently wrong as a bigger risk than quietly doubting yourself. A simple mental model for this is the internal editor. Imagine your mind as a writer and an editor. The writer produces thoughts quickly, observations, insights, conclusions. But the editor interrupts and says, are you sure? Sometimes the editor is helpful, but if it learned that mistakes are dangerous, it starts editing everything. Even when the writer is correct, over time, the editor becomes louder than the writer, and confidence feels unfamiliar. But this system can be adjusted, not by forcing confidence, but by changing how the brain interprets certainty. Which brings us to something practical. Practical framework. Instead of trying to be more confident, we're going to work with how the brain actually functions. Here are 4 steps that slowly recalibrate the system. Step 1. Separate accuracy from approval. What to do. When you state something you believe is correct, pause internally and ask one question. Is this accurate, or am I just worried about reactions? Why this works in the brain. This activates cognitive reappraisal, a process that shifts activity from emotional threat systems to the prefrontal cortex, where reasoning happens. It teaches the brain that accuracy and social approval are not the same signal. Real-life example. You point out a mistake in a meeting. Your brain immediately whispers, maybe I shouldn't have said that. Instead of retracting, you mentally separate the two. The information was correct. People's reactions are separate data. Over time, this reduces automatic doubt loops. But something else needs to change too. Step 2. Slow the internal editor. What to do? When doubt appears immediately after speaking, wait 5 seconds before mentally revising what you said. Do nothing during that pause. Why this works in the brain. The brain's error detection system fires quickly, but many of its alerts are false positives. Pausing interrupts automatic correction behavior, allowing the prefrontal cortex to evaluate more calmly. Real-life example. You answer a question in class or a discussion. Your mind instantly says, that sounded wrong. Instead of adding more explanations or apologizing, you wait. Often, the conversation moves on normally. Your brain slowly learns that the alarm wasn't necessary. Step 3. Collect evidence of being right. What to do? Start mentally noting moments when your judgment turned out correct. Not in a journal, necessarily, just recognition. Why this works in the brain. The brain updates beliefs through prediction error learning. If your brain expects you to be wrong but reality proves otherwise repeatedly, it begins adjusting its internal model. Real-life example. You suggest a solution. Later, it works. Instead of dismissing it as luck, pause and register it. That was accurate. This strengthens a neural association between your perception and positive outcomes. And gradually, confidence becomes data-driven rather than emotional. Step 4. Speak before certainty feels perfect. What to do? Share ideas when you are about 70% sure, not 100%. Why this works in the brain. Waiting for full certainty increases avoidance reinforcement. Your brain learns. Silence prevents risk. But speaking earlier retrains the brain's threat prediction system. Real-life example. You notice something during a group discussion. Normally you'd wait until you're completely sure. Instead, you say, I think this might be happening. Not aggressive, just present. Over time, the brain learns something powerful. Most interactions are safer than predicted, but these steps connect through one deeper idea, a mental model that quietly shifts how you see yourself. Integration. Think of your mind not as someone who lacks confidence, but as someone with a highly sensitive radar. Your brain scans for social signals more carefully than average. That sensitivity once helped you adapt. But radar systems need recalibration, not removal. Each step we talked about does one thing. It teaches the brain that certainty is not danger, accuracy is not arrogance, and hesitation is not always necessary. Over time, something subtle happens. Your internal editor becomes quieter. Not gone, just balanced. The writer gets more space. And when that happens, doubt stops controlling the moment. It becomes just another signal, not the final decision. But there's one last thing worth understanding. Confidence doesn't usually arrive loudly. It grows in quiet corrections. Moments where you didn't step back. Moments where you let your thought exist without apologizing for it. And those moments change the brain more than you realize. Quiet, empowering, close. One day, you might notice something different. You say something you believe is right, and your mind doesn't rush to erase it. Not because you force confidence, but because your brain learned something new. That being certain is not the same as being unsafe. The interesting part is this. Most people who doubt themselves like this are often the ones who observe the most carefully. They notice details others overlook. Their mind checks things deeply, which means your doubt was never a lack of ability. It was just a system trying to protect you. A little too early. And when that system relaxes, you don't become louder. You simply become clearer. And clarity has a quiet kind of strength